77 WABC invites you to a family fun day and softball showdown on July 20th with net proceeds benefiting Shriners Children's. John Sterling will call the game as the FDNY takes on the NYPD with special guests Dwight Gooden, Art Shamsky, 77 WABC hosts including Sid Rosenberg, Anthony Cumia, Lionel, Dominic Carter, and many more. For more info and to buy tickets, go to ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org. That's ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative. On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Roger Stone Show, where we talk politics, news, history, style, and food for 2 hours every week. In breaking political news, Tesla founder and ex-CEO Elon Musk has announced that the America Party, a new third political party, will rise in response to President Trump's signature Big Beautiful Bill. When it comes to bankrupting our country with waste and graft, we live in a one-party system, not a democracy, Musk wrote in X. Now, while I have huge respect for Elon Musk, particularly when it comes to his defense of free speech and his decision to release the proof that the federal government, specifically the intelligence agencies, were working hand in glove with executives at Twitter to censor those who questioned the outcome of the 2020 election or questioned the safety and effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccination or questioned whether Hunter Biden's shocking emails were real. They were. I could really not disagree more by this decision. Now, I could also not disagree more with Steve Bannon's call to deport Elon Musk. First of all, he's a U.S. citizen, so he cannot be deported. Or Bannon's call to nationalize Musk's companies like SpaceX and Tesla. That's actually called communism. We don't do that kind of thing in this country. But it's hard to see where Musk will draw support for his new party. The conservative stalwarts in the House Freedom Caucus supported the Big Beautiful Bill because of its massive tax cuts and its additional funding for border protection and the deportation of dangerous illegal immigrants, as well as the funding for the Golden Dome. That's the strategic defense initiative that would build a shield around the country from incoming ICBM missiles. Only in the end, extreme libertarian-leaning Representative Thomas Massie and Senator Rand Paul came out against the Big Beautiful Bill because of concerns about the rising debt and deficit. Recognize that Elon Musk is not wrong when he says that we need to cut wasteful spending. I also admire him for his very effective efforts to ferret out not millions, not billions, but trillions of dollars of waste, fraud, and corruption in federal spending. If it were not for Elon Musk, we would not realize that the USAID, which was founded under President John F. Kennedy as a way to bolster governments in the Central and South America areas who were struggling against communist insurgencies, had expanded into a massive slush fund of the left, paying for color revolutions, paying for impeachment, paying for all kinds of cockamamie programs that the American people knew nothing about. But it's hard to see, again, where Musk's new party will get its support if not from conservatives. Pardon me if I've seen this movie before, but in 1992, Ross Perot, another billionaire and therefore able to mount ballot access for his own party, ran as a third-party candidate, effectively electing Bill Clinton. As I revealed in my book, The Clintons' War on Women, Perot and Clinton spoke every night on the phone in a tag team effort to defeat George H.W. Bush. You see, Perot's real anger did not stem from federal spending or other inefficiencies in federal government. Perot was angry because his fellow Texan, George H.W. Bush, as vice president, had disregarded Perot's claims that there were still prisoners of war being held captive in North Vietnam. And I think so it is with Musk. I don't think Musk's real anger pertains largely to the spending and debt, although those are legitimate concerns. I think he is more upset about the fact that a protege of his, Jared Isaacman, was passed over to be the head of NASA. This is, of course, the kind of inside information that you come to the Roger Stone Show for. I don't see that there will be many defectors in terms of elected officials from the Republican Party, but what he might be able to do, sadly, would be to split the vote and play spoiler during the midterm elections. First of all, I think he underestimates the difficulty of getting a new party on the ballot in all 50 states, particularly when you cannot collect petitions around the name of some popular and well-known candidate. It's extremely expensive and difficult. Let me suggest to you that I think Elon Musk is about to get scammed by a bunch of so-called ballot access signature collection experts who most likely incorporated their companies last week. Musk is a brilliant businessman. He's great when it comes to putting a rocket into the air or developing an electric car. But I don't think he knows much about the mechanics of politics, even though I think his heart is in the right place. Let's recognize, however, that as soon as he bought Twitter and turned it into X, and as soon as he decided to release the proof that the government was working hand in glove with Twitter executives to censor supporters of President Trump, as well as censor anyone who questioned the outcome of the 2020 election or the effectiveness and safety of the COVID-19 vaccination, he put a target on his back. He immediately became the target of 9 separate federal investigations by the Biden administration. There's little question in my mind that if Kamala Harris had actually won, they would have stripped him of all of his federal contracts, and they would have destroyed his companies and probably tried to send him to jail. So let's not pretend that Elon Musk's motives in supporting Donald Trump were entirely altruistic, although I do think he did help contribute to Trump's victory. The Democrats are currently on the ropes with the party's establishment in shambles, while left-wing radicals like Zoran Mamdani rise up through the ranks to define the party nationally. Republicans are on the cusp of sweeping victories that would cement the MAGA agenda and put America on the trajectory to greatness. Musk certainly has points when he talks about the toxic culture in Washington. They don't call it the swamp for nothing. Nobody's argued that the big, beautiful bill was perfect, but conservatives were able to get some major victories in that bill. So we should not, in my opinion, throw out the baby with the bathwater at this critical juncture. Musk could make himself most useful, and I think be more effective for the cause of restoring fiscal sanity in Washington, D.C., by strategically financing and supporting primary challenges to certain squishy Republicans in name only, we call them rhinos, in the Congress and the Senate. This would unite MAGA around him. Instead, he might become a pariah to many of his formerly most fervent supporters because of his rash decision to support and fund a new third party. The American Party is not going to promote fiscal conservative and actually have a chance to destroy fiscal conservative forever by enabling the Democrats to return to power and to obstruct President Trump's agenda at a critical juncture. On behalf of all of those who put America first, I respectfully urge Elon Musk to reconsider this decision. Meanwhile, I think Attorney General Pam Bondi has to take action after a review issued by CIA Director John Ratcliffe, which implicated numerous top Obama-era officials in being complicit in the conspiracy to frame President Donald Trump as a Russian agent. We now know definitively, based on this CIA review, that it was Comey, Obama, Clapper, Brennan, and others who went out of their way to quote Ratcliffe, screw Trump. In fact, John Brennan decided to include the so-called Steele dossier in the briefing from the intelligence communities to President Barack Obama. He overruled two senior executives at the CIA who told him that the document was a fugazi and it did not live up to the standards that are used by the agency in evaluating intelligence, but they used it anyway. By the way, as my good friend Lee Smith, who wrote the plot to destroy the president, points out, this is not the first time we have learned this. Ratcliffe, the CIA director, specifically blasted the CIA and the FBI under Obama for their, quote, high confidence assessment that Russian President Vladimir Putin aspired for Trump to achieve victory over Hillary Clinton. He determined that the decision by those agency heads to include the Steele dossier in the briefing to President Barack Obama ran counter to all of the fundamental tradecraft principles and ultimately undermined the credibility of a key decision. Ratcliffe's report makes it clear that all available evidence points to the conjuring of Russiagate as being an act of desperation by deep state spooks to frankly try to undermine democracy in a partisan effort to destroy Trump. There's no question that former CIA Director John Brennan was the ringleader, but also culpable are Vice President Joe Biden, National Security Advisor Susan Rice, UN Ambassador Samantha Powers, Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, FBI Director James Comey, not to mention Acting Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. My question is very, very simple. These people tried to destroy my life and my family on the basis of a lie. I may have made misstatements to Congress, but none of them hid Russian collusion because there was no Russian collusion to hide. And therefore, my simple question is, when will these people be sent to prison? When will they be charged with treason? Because that's what this was. When will they stand trial? And when will they be held accountable? The American people want to know. A shout out to Attorney General Pam Bondi. Pam, the ball is in your court.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. The Tunica Biloxi tribe of Indians in Louisiana, recognizing an interesting loophole in the Nobel Peace Prize qualifications, has announced that it intends to nominate President Donald Trump for the 2026 Nobel Peace Prize. According to the rules of the Nobel Committee, any sovereign authority is qualified under their Norwegian model to nominate someone for the prize, and the chairman of the tribe, Marshall Pyrite, is going to join us here in just a little bit to tell us how they have decided to use their sovereign authority to nominate President Donald Trump for that prize. We'll be talking to him shortly. In the meantime, a new poll taken actually for Eric Adams' campaign, I understand, but done by American Pulse Research, shows that in the race for mayor, Adams is actually in fourth place. This poll has Zoran Mamdani at 35%, Andrew Cuomo currently running as an independent at 29%, Curtis Sliwa, the Republican nominee, at 16%, and embattled Mayor Eric Adams running last at 14%. Now, a number of voices in MAGA world have called for Sliwa to drop out of the race. I spoke to Curtis Sliwa this morning in preparation for this broadcast. There is no way in God's green earth that he will withdraw from this race. He earned the Republican nomination, and he will stay into the finish. If anyone should drop out, he makes a good case. That should be Eric Adams. He is, after all, an incumbent running fourth in the polls. Some of my Republican friends say, well, what if the president endorses Adams? This is New York City, folks. That would be the kiss of death. I love the president, but this is a Democrat stronghold. I have begun to look at this election in slightly different terms, not as Republicans versus Democrat, but as a progressive radical socialists versus sane people. There's little question in my mind that Mamdani's platform is a disaster for New York, doing away with cash bail, defunding the police, and opening Rikers Island and letting everyone out. That is a prescription for disaster. The costs of his various programs, which are going to be paid for by someone, but not the wealthy or the middle class, because frankly, they'll leave. There will be a mass exodus from New York City if this radical Muslim should get elected. Now, from a national point of view, and I'm afraid my friends in New York City would suffer greatly under this scenario, but if Mamdani is elected mayor, by 2028, the city will be on fire. It will be an economic and social disaster, and will be a showcase for the entire nation of what happens when you elect a socialist, if not a communist. So in all honesty, while I do not wish that on my many friends in New York, being the Democrat nominee is not tantamount to election, but an enormous leg up. In all honesty, at this juncture, Andrew Cuomo should drop out in the best interests of New York City, put partisanship aside, and if I were Eric Adams, I'd throw in the towel as well. My opinion, I think Curtis Sliwa is the one candidate who could beat Mamdani in a one-on-one race, but of course, those are just my own personal opinions. Beyond that, I'm going to be watching this very, very closely. In fact, I've gone out to commission a poll myself because I'd like to see where the Cuomo and Adams votes redistribute if either one of them were not in this race.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. The Tunica Biloxi tribe of Louisiana, a federally recognized Indian tribe, has announced its intention to nominate U.S. President Donald J. Trump for the 2026 Nobel Peace Prize. You see, the rules of the Norwegian Nobel Committee allow any sovereign authority to nominate a candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize. The U.S. government recognizes the Tunica Biloxi tribe as a sovereign nation, and therefore they are perfectly eligible to make this important nomination. Joining me now to talk about it is the chairman and CEO of the Tunica Biloxi tribe of Louisiana, Marshall Pierite, to talk to us about this momentous decision. Mr. Chairman, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you, Mr. Roger, and it's great to be on the Roger Stone Show.
I want to point out for our listeners that you are a proud U.S. Marine Corps veteran. You had various leadership roles within your tribe, making the Tunica Biloxi a job creator and a tremendous economic success for your tribal members, also benefiting the people of the state of Louisiana. But now you are taking a position on the world stage, recognizing this very interesting loophole in the laws that says that any sovereign authority can nominate someone for the Nobel Peace Prize, and there is no question that the U.S. government recognizes the Tunica Biloxi as a sovereign nation. So you've decided to make this. Tell me why you think President Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, President Trump, in my eyes, is going to be remembered as one of the most influential world leaders in history. And we just have to recognize him for his unwavering commitment to global leadership as well as peace. His bold action on a global front to ultimately champion peace through strength and facilitate ceasefire framework that brought hostilities to a halt. Such a breakthrough demands courage, confidence, and clarity. You know, I could tell you, Mr. Stone, the true purpose of the Nobel Peace Prize is to honor such a leader as President Donald J. Trump, a leader that has the courage to promote peace by recognizing those who work to end conflict, reduce arms, and foster reconciliation. President Trump does that day in and day out, as well as putting an American first policy agenda for the United States of America. He is a true leader, and leadership is, in my definition of leadership, someone that inspires, encourages, and empower on a day level, and he does that at everything he do. He encouraged diplomacy and cooperation, of course, across borders and cultures. And this prize, this honor, is intended to serve not just as a reward, but as a symbolic nudge to value peace over war, negotiation over violence, and justice over oppression. And if you look at from day one, President Donald J. Trump has been doing this.
The record, I think, is very clear. Of course, he brokered the Abraham Accords during his first term, a peace deal in the Middle East that virtually everyone said was impossible. He's facilitated economic normalizations between Serbia and Kosovo. He's negotiated a peace treaty between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. That is a war that has gone on for decades, a bloody war that's going on for decades. He's mediated ceasefires between India and Pakistan, other rivalry that go back hundreds of years, and is working day and night to keep a ceasefire in place between Israel and Iran. No world leader has dedicated more time or effort to promoting global peace. The greatest single title that history can bestow is that of peacemaker. He has not yet solved the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, but I'm convinced that he will. I know it is at the top of his agenda. I think this is a very bold move by the Tunica Biloxi to nominate him, and I'm hopeful that the Nobel Peace Prize Committee will take your nomination quite seriously.
I hope so too, and again, undoubtedly, no other leader deserved this more than President Donald J. Trump. And again, you know, I do believe at the core of my soul that President Trump has been anointed not only to lead America, but to be a world leader and bring peace to this, not only this great nation, but to the world.
Mr. Chairman, several months ago, you wrote a terrific piece that the president liked very much, in which you pointed out the unique opportunities that exist between those in Indian country and the Trump administration. People do not perhaps understand this, but in the sovereign nations of federally recognized Indian tribes, you regulate the use of your own land. And therefore, there are all kinds of possibilities, from housing to energy production plants to sewage treatment plants to data centers, many, many other job-creating opportunities that would really be unique to Indian country, because unfortunately, a number of our states, most of our states, are overregulated. Virtually impossible to do anything. You pointed out in a terrific piece talking about the potential for Indian country, specifically the Tunica Biloxi tribe, but every tribe, to partner with the Trump administration to create jobs and opportunities for all Americans, including tribal members. Talk to us about that.
Yes, sir. Well, it starts off with President Trump having a very bold, courageous vision. He is truly a visionary, and a visionary is someone that wakes up to what is going to be where everyone else wake up to what is. There is millions of manufacturing, advanced manufacturing jobs, textile jobs, call center jobs that left this great country during the last 30-plus years. And I do think President Trump's economic vision fits hand in hand with not only Tunica Biloxi vision, but Indian country vision, helping bring all of those jobs back to the United States and strategically tuck them on Indian reservations or in rural America where 95% of native tribes are located. And tribes can utilize their economic vehicles, their tribal sovereignty to make this happen through public-private partnerships. You have a lot of corporations that is looking to move these jobs back to the United States. But in reality, it can take them 3 to 4 years. But tribes have the infrastructure that is needed to get this done within 12 to 18 months. So that's why I am truly excited. In President Trump's first administration, when he started talking about bringing those jobs back, we built the infrastructure and the structure that was needed. And yes, we had to put it on pause for 4 years, but guess what? When he was reelected, our hopes and dreams became alive again because we knew his vision and our vision aligns. And we can, as far as not only Tunica Biloxi tribe, but Indian country, we can go from being, become a solution to a lot of America's problems. And we can help bring these jobs back again and strategically tug them in rural America or on reservations. And that's what's truly excites me when I can tell our young people that they can hope again. And the reason why they can hope again, because they see leaders like President Donald J. Trump, faith in action. And, you know, that not only allows rural community to go from a thriving economy or surviving economy to a thriving economy. So that is what is truly exciting. And, you know, another thing that I'm truly excited about, that this administration is not only inviting us tribes to have a seat at a table, but our voices is being heard. And how do I know our voices is being heard? Because he's bringing our vision to fruition. And you see it day in and day out in Louisiana. We got 5 billion, multi-billion-dollar companies relocating or locating in Louisiana. We're going to be part of that. So that is what we're truly excited about.
Well, I know that lawyers representing the tribe have been working closely with the Interior Department on legislation that would expedite and clear away a number of the barriers from tribes doing business with other tribes, a tribal job creation bill, if you will, a tribal commerce bill, which I think is a brilliant idea. I also looked this up the other day. As you know, the president deeply committed to the future of nuclear energy. There are a number of Indian lands in the country that have a more than large enough footprint to actually develop a nuclear power plant, which could be done. So I think the possibilities here are limitless if one recognizes the strength of that sovereign authority of the tribes over their own land. Now, in the last election, according to a poll by NBC, 62% of Native Americans voted for President Donald Trump. I know he is extraordinarily proud of that number. I know that he is very anxious to pursue the possibilities for economic development on tribal lands because, well, after all, he's a builder. And he understands completely the challenge of trying to build anything on commercial land, any place in the United States today. It's based on regulations. It is virtually impossible. All right, I want to thank our guest. It is Chairman Marshall Perit of the Tunica Biloxi tribe of Louisiana. In a groundbreaking move, they have announced that they're going to use their sovereign authority to recommend President Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. We had a great opportunity to talk to their chairman about the great coming partnership between Indian country and the Trump administration for economic jobs and growth. There's no question in my mind that Native Americans play a key role in the coming golden age, an unprecedented age of peace, prosperity, security, and justice. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Chairman. And for the rest of you folks, you're still listening to The Roger Stone Show here on the Red Apple Audio Network. So please, whatever you do, we'll be back with more. Please, whatever you do, don't touch that dial.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Under relentless pressure from Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, who chairs a subcommittee of the House Oversight Committee looking into the JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King assassinations, and President Trump's order to release all of the documents held by the National Archives, the Central Intelligence Agency has made a not-so-stunning admission that one of their psychological warfare specialists was actually manipulating Lee Harvey Oswald shortly before he allegedly assassinated President John F. Kennedy. Prior to this, both the FBI and the CIA have always insisted that they had no previous knowledge of Oswald prior to November 22nd, 1963. But now, a memo dated January 17th, 1963, and released to the public through the hard work of Chairwoman Luna, shows that CIA officer George Joannides created an alias and a phony driver's license under the name Howard Gebler. This contradicts decades of the CIA denying that Joannides was, in fact, using that alias. Under this alias, Joannides worked with anti-communist activists called the Cuban Student Directorate. The CIA had long denied that they set up this front, which of course turns out also to be a lie. Joannides served as a deputy chief of the CIA's Miami branch, where he was a specialist in psychological lawfare. Joannides' anti-communist front had significant contact with Lee Harvey Oswald, with its activists getting into a staged public scuffle with him before engaging in a debate on a local TV station in New Orleans, helping to build the narrative that Oswald was a communist defector and that he was therefore responsible for the murder of JFK. They were building that narrative so that the American people would accept that story. After JFK was killed, Joannides went on to deceive the House Select Committee on Assassinations, which was set up in the late 70s to re-examine JFK's assassination, where he actually prevented any real investigation. The CIA stonewalled the House committee, refusing to provide any documents or any testimony to the committee under the leadership of the liaison position of Joannides himself. There's no wonder that the House Select Committee decided in their final report that organized crime had played a significant role in John F. Kennedy's murder. They aren't wrong about that, but the House committee missed the important role of the CIA because Joanides was stonewalling on behalf of the agency. For anyone who's following the truth about the Kennedy assassination, this is enormous news, and credit really goes to the indefatigable Congresswoman from Florida, Anna Paulina Luna, and also to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, in their relentless effort to get the deep state to finally release all of the records that will show us who killed President John F. Kennedy and why. You're listening to The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks, and, well, we'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
On July 2nd, Sean Diddy Combs was only found guilty of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, the Mann Act, related to his former girlfriend, Casey Ventura, and another woman known as Jane. Each count carries a maximum sentence of 10 years, though sentencing guidelines suggest a range of 4 to 5 years, with Combs already having served about 9 months behind bars. He was acquitted on the more serious charges of racketeering, conspiracy, and 2 counts of sex trafficking, which could have led to life imprisonment. The trial, which lasted nearly 2 months, revealed allegations of a criminal enterprise involving coerced sex acts, drugs, and violence, although Combs' defense argued that all those acts were consensual. The judge in the case has denied bail, citing Combs' potential danger, and proposed sentencing is now set for October 3rd of 2025. Combs will now face additional civil suits, which have a lower burden of proof. Here to help us break this shocking development down is Jaco Booyens. He is a recognized leader in the fight against sex trafficking. In President Trump's first term, he served as an advisor to the Trump White House's Anti-Trafficking Council. He also advises several nations and organizations combating human trafficking. His efforts are universally recognized, and we are very, very proud to have him on the show. Jaco, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Roger, what a pleasure, and thank you for your voice in our nation. It's an honor to be with you today.
So I must tell you, having followed the Jeffrey Epstein case, I was one of the first people in the country to write about Epstein. If you go to my book, The Clintons' War on Women, that was published in 2015, the longest chapter in the book is about Jeffrey Epstein and his criminal enterprises. I detail there how the police chief in Palm Beach gave state prosecutors a airtight case for sex trafficking and statutory rape of 33 individual underage victims, yet he got a slap on the wrist, and then only years later would he be charged federally. I also followed the Ghislaine Maxwell trial very carefully. I'm still astounded how you can be involved in conspiracy, but no other conspirators are named. And now this. What are we to make of all of this?
Yeah, Roger, I followed your work through those trials, and we too were involved with every one of them since 2005 on Epstein. This year marks the 31st year for me to combat trafficking, and it's important to note because my sister Ilonka was trafficked when she was 12 in 1994 through a U.S. record label in the music business. Within human trafficking, Diddy's case is very particular to our family because we know how this crime is perpetrated. This case was built as a house of straw. It was built wrong from the get-go. From when the claims were made until the case was filed, we looked at this case and we said, this will fall apart in trial. Is they're building a case on one key witness testimony, Casey Ventura, who, in my opinion, was coerced, was defrauded, and was trafficked. But you go build a case against massive powerhouses of people, Hollywood elites, executives, people from Wall Street that attend these parties, and you're going to hang that whole case on a single survivor's testimony. Not only that, look at who the prosecutor is in the case. The prosecution did an absolute dismal job in this case. They don't know how to deal with survivors. They don't understand the type of trauma that survivors go through. So these cases have holes in it like Swiss cheese. And in defense, all they need to do, like they did with Virginia Giuffre in the Epstein case, is with Virginia, they asked Virginia if she'd ever lied before. When she said, sure, I mean, who hasn't? And they go, she's not a credible witness. With Cassie this time, and we saw it coming, they said, well, was your acts with Diddy ever consensual? Ever? And of course it was at some point. She was in love with the man. But if you understand how predators work, how traffickers work, what force, fraud, and coercion actually does to the exploitation of a person, how they earn the victim's trust, how they manipulate them with power and with status and appeal, of course at some point it was consensual. But then she also says, but I didn't consent to XYZ. I didn't consent to getting drugged. I didn't consent to waking up and having had sex with men that I didn't know. I didn't consent to having to sleep with men in order to record a record or for you to sing 16 bars on my record. I didn't consent to that. So these cases are very seldomly, Roger, built right because the people who built them do not know the crime. We have. Do you know, Roger, that we prosecute sex crimes in our country, which is these are felonies, right? We prosecute it at the state level as a low a rate as 13%, where the charge is a felony and the verdict is a felony for what it was charged, human trafficking, as low as 13%. All other crimes that are felonies, the charges match the claims at 92%. We do a dismal job at prosecuting sex crimes in this country, particularly when elites are involved.
Let me play devil's advocate here, if I may. The prosecutor in question, of course, was Maureen Ryan Comey. She is the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, a man who just this past week was proven to have conspired with others in the greatest single dirty trick in American political history, and an abuse of power in which the full authority of the United States government, plus the incredible capabilities of our intelligence committees, utilized two pieces of quote-unquote evidence that they knew to be fabricated, the Steele dossier and the false claim that the Democrat National Committee had been the victim of an online hack by Russian intelligence to try to remove a legitimately duly elected president of the United States. So at a minimum, Maureen Comey is an establishmentarian. She's certainly representative of the established order. Given the stature of many of those involved in the Epstein scandal, those involved in the Diddy scandal, perhaps the government does understand how to build these cases, but they're throwing the cases to protect those who Epstein was catering to, that Diddy was catering to. I think that's a very likely possibility. What do you think?
Very good point, Roger. Yes. And to play devil's advocate that way, you would say, but think of the nefarious nature of that, where the American citizen is going to lose because the end justifies the means. And I would say that's most likely what happened here. Why are all these cases taken to New York? Maxwell wasn't arrested in New York. They're taken to New York. You find a certain amount of prosecutors with a certain history, a history that's riddled with what seems to be corruption, right, to prosecute these cases. And you make a really good point that it is nefarious in nature and even building the case, because you would never, if you were building this case correctly to actually prosecute the crime, you would subpoena co-conspirators, because RICO is what RICO charged. So racketeering, conspiracy was the charges. So then you would go subpoena other people that went to the freak-off parties. You would go subpoena the record label executives that paid for the parties. 22 years ago, when Sean couldn't pay for the parties, you would subpoena them, you would bring them in to testify, you would cross-examine them, you would go get other witnesses in the industry. None of that happened. They never prosecuted this case to actually find Sean Combs. I refuse to call him Diddy. His name is Sean Combs. To find Sean guilty on what he was charged for. Because if they were to do it, Roger, cookie would crumble. They would have to go call some serious names. You would have to go call a prince in the Epstein case. You would have to go call a former president of the United States to come testify. You would have to go call some high-ranking individuals in Hollywood. And the American citizen that's not a celebrity loses every time. And so this is how the left plays. I want us to understand, even with President Trump in the White House, who is a champion against human trafficking. I mean, I'm telling you, I fought this my whole life in this country. No president has done more. Even with him, you see now that there are those who work against him, and they find these loopholes in the system to protect their friends, and the American citizen suffers.
Yeah, it is not incidental that U.S. Attorney Damian Williams oversaw all three of these cases, the Epstein case, the Maxwell case, the Diddy case. And I think all three of these cases were thrown. In Epstein's case, the New York medical examiner, Michael Baden, one of the most respected forensic pathologists in the United States, examined Epstein's body and insists that his injuries are not consistent with him having hung himself. The American people are asked to believe that the security cameras just happened to be out of order, that the two guards who were supposed to be monitoring Epstein happened to fall asleep, that they happened to remove his cellmate the day before he allegedly killed himself. Yet we had his criminal defense lawyer, David Schoen, on this show, who said he was retained the Thursday before, and they had reached a settlement on his retention fee, which was not an insubstantial amount. So who hires an expensive lawyer on Thursday but kills themselves on Saturday? The answer is no one. You're tuned in to the Roger Stone Show. We're talking to Jaco Booyens, who is one of the leaders in the country in the fight against human trafficking and sex trafficking. And we're going to continue to talk about the Diddy trial and who it may have covered up for when we get back. Whatever you do, folks, please don't touch that dial. This is the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple audio networks, and we'll be back with more.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back on the Roger Stone Show. We're talking to Jaco Booyens, a recognized leader in the fight against sex trafficking. We're talking about the larger issue of human trafficking and sex trafficking in the United States, specifically trying to sort out what exactly happened at the Sean Combs trial. I just said that I thought the government purposely through these trials. Where are the co-conspirators? Where are the indictments against others beyond just Sean Combs, beyond just Ghislaine Maxwell, beyond just Jeffrey Epstein, for that matter? These people were catering to elites whose names would be known to virtually everyone listening to this radio show. That's why I think there was a massive cover-up here. Jaco, let me ask you, Democrats like California Governor Gavin Newsom and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker are talking about decriminalizing sex work. Now, as a libertarian, there was a day in which I considered prostitution a victimless crime, thought that it could be legalized if it was regulated with health checkups. I've kind of abandoned that position because I think that the cartels, as it were, organized crime and other bad actors would move in, just utilize this legalization, putting women or children, boys and girls, into servitude against their will. And therefore, I've changed my view. What do you think of these proposals?
Yeah, Roger, thank you for bringing that up. It's a massive movement. It's called the Full decrim movement, and it's led by J.B. Pritzker and his brother and Gavin Newsom. Later this year in November, there's a massive conference in Johannesburg, South Africa, where they want to lead the effort. Look, the three places where that has happened in the world all pulled it back. Child trafficking skyrocketed over 1,000%. You cannot decriminalize the sale of people. In an ideal world, under your previous statement, if it was purely consensual, you could have that argument. But do you know that 87% of all legal prostitutes that are in counties in Nevada that are legal, 87% of them have filed trafficking charges? Because all it takes, Roger, is one event where that human being says, I don't want to go into that guy's hotel room, I don't want to be with him intimately, and they're forced to do it, and now it's trafficking. So the decrim movement falls on its face from the get-go. It will be exploited, but it's gaining a lot of momentum in our country, part and parcel, because they'll even tell you, well, these crimes are so difficult to prosecute. Think about this, 20-something years of freak-off parties by Sean Combs. 20 years. They call one testimony, they charge him with human trafficking, which means there's a buyer and a seller. This is an industry of supply meets demand. Yet not in Epstein or Maxwell or Harvey Weinstein, for that matter, or Kevin Spacey or Diddy, did any of the buyers get called. No buyer is cross-examined. Nobody that bought human beings when Epstein provided them. Nobody that paid for sex with children when Epstein provided them. He's charged with trafficking. So where's the buyers? I mean, you're charging him with trafficking, so go get the buyers. The buyers are high-profile individuals in this country, and they cover for them. So 20-something years of cases, and the jury comes to a verdict in 3 days. 3 days, and the Friday before the verdict, they dropped 50% of the sex trafficking charges on the Friday. They just dropped 50% of the charges because they said, we don't think the jury can come to a verdict on these charges. No, because you intentionally, to your point, built the case so poorly that Cassie Ventura is the largest loser here, if that makes sense. She's the one that is losing because her face is out there. She's now called a liar. And I was quite surprised, actually, that some of the Hollywood elites came out, some of the women in the Me Too movement came out and said, so there's never justice for any victim.
It is a great tragedy. I want to thank our guest, Jaco Booyens, for joining us to talk about the Diddy case. And whatever you do, folks, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back with Congressman Eric Burlison to tell us about the tremendous importance of the big, beautiful bill.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Now joining us is one of my favorite members of Congress, Eric Burlison, who is a rock-ribbed Reagan conservative, a bulldog champion of the taxpayers, a fighter for your Second Amendment rights, and a staunch and outspoken supporter of President Donald Trump and his reform agenda. Congressman Burlison represents the 7th District of Missouri, which includes Springfield and the surrounding areas. He served in the Missouri General Assembly prior to his election to Congress, but don't ever call him a politician. He is a man who ran for public office not to be someone, but in order to do something, and we're proud to have him on the Roger Stone Show today. Congressman, welcome.
Thank you, Roger. It's always an honor.
So you had a front row seat here for an important part of American history. From the beginning, I believe you were a staunch supporter of President Trump's big, beautiful bill. You, like many of us, expressed concern about the need to further cut federal spending, but if you understand House rules and how the House works, this really wasn't the appropriate vehicle for that. The administration has a series of rescission bills in which they're going to tackle the problem of excess spending. but it was a tumultuous, really a tenuous and exciting time. I stayed up all night into the wee hours of the morning to see if Speaker Johnson would round up the votes, and in the end, he did. So tell us what it was like to be there when you heard that the measure had passed.
It was fantastic, and look, me and several members of the Freedom Caucus were really fighting hard to get every piece of what Donald Trump wanted, and probably were more aggressive and envious than even the president when it came to being willing to give in to the moderates. Things like the SALT tax deduction increase, we fought that tooth and nail because it does have a cost, and it really doesn't benefit middle class Americans. It benefits mostly people in paying high tax states. We thought that jeopardized Trump's agenda and his ability to make many of the tax cuts better or more permanent. So we were fighting to get to do that. We were also trying to figure out how, in order to pay for these tax cuts, how can we reduce spending in other areas, especially things like the Green New Deal, which Donald Trump said he wanted entirely gone, but yet Republicans and K Street didn't want the Green New Deal gone, and so they fought us. The Senate really jammed us with some language that watered down those spending reductions. So on the day of the vote, we had meetings with the White House. We were trying to figure out how we can navigate some of the things that the Senate has sent over. But by that evening, we'd come up with a list of things that we felt that we needed to fight for and get a commitment. And by about 2 a.m., we got a commitment from the president's team. And really, at the end of the day, I don't think they had a hard problem with getting the president and his team on board. It's getting the rest of the conference on board, right? And so that once we got some of those commitments, then we were able to deliver a huge win for the president.
Yeah, many people criticize Speaker Mike Johnson. I am not among them because I think he has one of the most difficult jobs on earth. He has members of his conference like you and Anna Paulina Luna and Andy Ogles and of course many of my friends in the Freedom Caucus who want radical reform of government. And then you have those, let's call them what they are, rhinos, those moderate Republicans who don't really want to do anything other than get reelected. They want to just not rock the boat. And he has to get a majority of his caucus to vote for anything. It's an extraordinarily difficult job, and my hat's off to him for his leadership in this fight. I think he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I think he did too, and we, part of it was us in that fight, and recognizing we may have to give to some of the moderates on issues like raising the SALT tax, but in exchange, we were able to get them to buy into, letting us correct some of the misuse, the waste, fraud, and abuse within Medicaid and other programs, which ultimately strengthens those programs for the people that need it. Those were huge wins. And I think Johnson did a good job of trying to navigate a very narrow path.
Yeah, we had a great interview with your colleague, Tim Burchett, the other day, and it was a great interview. Let's look at this the other way around for a moment, if we may. Every House Democrat voted essentially for the largest tax increase in American history, because if the Trump first-term tax cuts had not been renewed in January, the American people would have had an across-the-board 68% increase in federal income tax rates. They voted not to allow to cut the tax on tips. They voted against slashing, or I should say, they voted to slash the child tax credit. They voted to keep criminal illegal aliens here in the United States. They voted to continue to give illegals Medicaid. This is truly a party that has lost its way.
That's a really great way to put it, because the Democrats they're really salivating, thinking that they've got one over on us, that they can be able to campaign on this one big beautiful bill. But I think that, to your point, there's just as much negative for voting against the bill. And once the American people start living under this bill and the new tax benefits, and they start getting huge tax returns this coming April, I think that the following election in November, those middle class taxpayers are going to be rewarding us because they will have lived under the benefits of the One Big Beautiful Bill.
I agree with that. I think the CBO, by the way, which has a long history of being wrong, the Congressional Budget Office insisted that the Reagan tax cuts would cause a deficit, but of course, federal revenues spiked sharply, as they did after the Trump tax cuts in his first term, after they did after John F. Kennedy's tax cuts. So this continuous liberal myth and the static analysis of the CBO, which never takes economic growth into consideration, was just used as another piece of the disinformation campaign against the bill. I had members of my own family saying, how can you support something that cuts Social Security? There's nothing, not only does it not cut Social Security, but 88% of those currently receiving Social Security benefits got a tax break, will not have those benefits taxed. So that's just another example of the disinformation out there that supporters of the bill had to face down. I believe these artificial intelligence aspects of the bill where they limited states from regulating AI, in the end, those got stripped out, did they not?
That language got stripped out by a Senate amendment. In fact, Senator Cruz, who was the sponsor of that language, decided to strip it, that it wasn't the right time, and he stripped it. He voted to strip his own language out of the One Big Beautiful Bill. So that took a little bit of the controversy. That issue can cut both ways. But at the end of the day, we don't want to complicate a bill that's already complicated. And I think that was wise for them to take that out. And then to your point, you're absolutely right. The Democrats are going to continue to lie. They have, for example, they're setting up staging protests at nursing homes and other places, trying to shout that people at nursing homes are going to be kicked off Medicaid, or individuals who are disabled are going to be kicked off Medicaid, and that could not be further from the truth. The only changes to Medicaid that we did that might impact an individual is a person who is an able-bodied, young age working adult, and we know that statistically there are a lot of, unfortunately, young men between the ages of 18 and 50 that are just checked out of the workforce. They don't, for whatever reason, they don't feel like they need to go work. And if they're not disabled, we should not be covering their health insurance and their food stamps and their other benefits. We need to motivate individuals to get back to work, and that's what this Trump economy needs. We need more people working the jobs, and I mean, that's how you grow an economy. And once people have one job, they might get promoted to another job, better job. That's how it works. People don't just immediately jump into management.
Yeah, the Social Security stuff really particularly sticks in my craw, because which party was it that moved the Social Security funds from a private trust to the public fund so Congress could spend it? Why, that was Lyndon Johnson and the Democrats. Which party stopped tax deductions for Social Security payments? That happened under the Democrats. Which party started the taxing of Social Security benefits? Why, that would be the Democrats. Which party started giving our Social Security money to illegal immigrants who had not paid into the Social Security Trust Fund? Why, that, once again, would be the Democrats. During their recent 12 years in power, 4 under Obama, 4 under Biden, there was never a Social Security increase other than the cost of living adjustment, which Joe Biden tried to take credit for, but the president who pushed and signed the legislation that ensured that Social Security payments were adjusted based on the cost of living was Richard Milhous Nixon. In 1972, he signed a bill that introduced automatic cost of living adjustments, COLAs, for Social Security benefits, which started in 1975. So the Democrats have demagogued the Social Security issue every 2 or 4 years for as long as I can remember. And it was President Donald Trump. There were technical reasons why the tax on Social Security couldn't be eliminated entirely, but they came up with a formula under which 88% of those who currently receive benefits will no longer pay taxes on them. To me, that is one of the greatest things in the bill.
It is. It's a huge benefit. And those seniors, when they realize how big of a tax benefit, I think that they will understand that what the Democrats are doing is all hogwash. But to your point, we do have a shortfall that was created by the Democrats because in about 9 years, the amount of money that's going in for Social Security will not equal the amount that's going out. And as a result, some adjustments will have to be made. And the Democrats put into the bill an automatic reduction in benefits. So the Democratic Party has laid some landmines that are going to have to be addressed. And I don't think I think the Republicans are going to have to be the adults and fix it.
If you're just tuning in, folks, we're talking to Congressman Eric Burlison from Missouri. We're talking about the benefits of the big, beautiful bill and also some of the landmines that the Democrats have laid for Social Security beneficiaries in the future. We'll be right back with more of one of the most conservative and articulate champions of the taxpayers in the U.S. House of Representatives, Congressman Eric Burlison, on the other side. Whatever you do, folks, please stay with us here on The Roger Stone Show and don't touch that dial. When we come back, I want to ask the congressman whether he thinks it's time for the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates on the American people. So whatever you do, don't go away.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. We're talking to Congressman Eric Burlison. The congressman is a solid, rock-ribbed conservative, a strong supporter of free market policies, individual freedom, and he has focused his entire political career on reducing government regulations. He's a proud father, husband, God-fearing patriot, and he is the host of a popular podcast, Fresh Freedom. Congressman, where can people go to see your podcast?
It's on everywhere you can look: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, X, Rumble. So we try to broadcast it everywhere.
How often do you do your show?
Each week that we are in session, which is about 3 weeks a month, we will do a podcast. It's myself and a few other freshman members of Congress, and so we try to bring on a special guest. Would love to have you on next time you're in D.C.
I would be more than honored. So it cannot be a great time to be a Democrat. Think about it. USAID has been defunded. The Dow is skyrocketing. Rogue left-wing judges' powers finally been limited by the Supreme Court. Iran's nuclear weapons development capability has been smashed. Zoran is emerging as the leader of their party, a pro-Hamas Muslim radical. The Republican National Committee has 5 times more cash on hand than the Democrat National Committee, which has to borrow to stay alive. Illegal aliens are being deported, and we just increased more funding for that. President Trump is brokering peace deals across the globe. States will soon start defunding Planned Parenthood, and white males like David Hogg are being kicked out of the Democrat Party. Can't be very exciting to be a Democrat these days, can it?
No, the wins just keep coming. But one of the ones that I would add to your list is that the Democrats' fundraising apparatus, Act Blue, is under total disarray, being criminally investigated, and so I think that the fact that we discovered that they were laundering money through Act Blue and attributing it to to American citizens that had no idea that they were making these contributions.
To the extent of millions and millions and millions of dollars. By the way, one of the biggest recipients of this money in the country, New York Attorney General Letitia James. Going to become time to pay the piper here very soon. This is how they propped up Kamala Harris's campaign as well. Act Blue is a criminal conspiracy in which they launder millions of dollars in multiple small and medium-sized contributions in the names of people. In some cases, the people don't exist. In other cases, when you contact them, they have no idea what you're talking about. So, Congressman, you're absolutely right. That's an important development. I know the House is conducting a vigorous investigation into Act Blue. It explains why, for example, Marco Rubio's challenger, Val Demings, in the last Senate election, she raised $37 million. Marco Rubio, an incumbent, raised $10 million. Now, he beat her soundly, but how does an obscure House member who no one's really ever heard of raise $37 million on the Internet, other, candidly, than by fraud? You have put your finger right on the issue.
Yeah, I think if we keep investigating, I think what we're going to find is that a lot of that money originated overseas. It was coming in from people that would otherwise not be able to contribute, so they just they use algorithms to log into Act Blue, take a spreadsheet of people that had previously donated and just enter their demographic information and attribute the contribution to those people. So it was on a large scale.
All right, I'm afraid we have to end it there. I want to thank our guest, Congressman Eric Burlison from Missouri, a staunch conservative, a great supporter of the president, giving us an eyewitness account on the passage of the most significant piece of legislation in my lifetime, President Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. Congressman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Roger. Anytime.
Thanks for listening to The Roger Stone Show. You can hear The Roger Stone Show Sunday afternoons at 3. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
77 WABC invites you to a family fun day and softball showdown on July 20th with net proceeds benefiting Shriners Children's. John Sterling will call the game as the FDNY takes on the NYPD with special guests Dwight Gooden, Art Shamsky, 77 WABC hosts including Sid Rosenberg, Anthony Cumia, Lionel, Dominic Carter, and many more. For more info and to buy tickets, go to ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org. That's ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org.